Melissa Grant thought she had found love. Olivia Grant sensed danger long before anyone believed her. Jacob Grant tried to stay silent but carried the heaviest secret, and Aaron Cole, the man who seemed perfect, was hiding a monstrous truth that would shatter the entire family and leave the nation in shock. Melissa Grant had always carried herself with quiet strength. Life had not been easy, but she managed to raise her two children, 16-year-old Olivia and 12-year-old Jacob, with a sense of stability that came from her own determination. Their small house in Cedar Hills was modest, but filled with warmth, a place where neighbors often said the lights from the windows made it feel alive even on the darkest nights. For years, Melissa had focused only on her children, burying her own needs in the responsibility of keeping a roof over their heads. But as Olivia grew into a young woman and Jacob became more independent, Melissa began to feel the weight of loneliness pressing harder on her shoulders. That was when she met Aaron Cole. Aaron came into her life like a gust of fresh air after years of stillness. He was tall, with an easy smile that seemed to soften every room he entered. He told her he had been through struggles but was determined to change, determined to prove he was the kind of man worth believing in. To Melissa, he seemed kind, attentive, and endlessly supportive. He listened to her stories with genuine interest, made her laugh in a way she hadn't laughed in years, and reminded her that she deserved companionship. Friends who first met him said he seemed charming, almost too good to be true. But Melissa, worn down by years of trying to be everything on her own, wanted desperately to believe that she had finally found someone who could stand beside her. The children reacted differently. Jacob was eager for a male figure in his life, someone who would play catch in the yard or cheer him on at his soccer games. He warmed up to Aaron quickly, following him around and hanging on to every word. Olivia was more cautious. She had grown up watching her mother work tirelessly, sacrificing her own happiness for the family, and she felt protective. Aaron's sudden presence unsettled her. He was polite, he smiled often, and he always said the right thing, but Olivia could not shake a faint unease. It was something in the way his eyes lingered too long, or how he seemed to study people more than he should. Still, Melissa chose to trust. She told herself Olivia was just being a protective teenager, unwilling to share her mother's attention. She told herself that everyone carried scars from their past, and Aaron was no different, so she let him move in, filling the spare dresser drawers with his clothes, placing his toothbrush in the bathroom, and allowing his voice to become part of the daily hum of the household. For a short time, life seemed brighter. The family went out together. Aaron took them to dinners they never could have afforded before, and their photographs on social media painted the picture of a family finally complete. Neighbors noticed Melissa smiling more, standing taller, as though a long-awaited happiness had finally arrived at her doorstep. What no one saw then, not even Melissa herself, was how carefully Aaron had woven himself into their lives, how quickly he had studied the rhythms of the household, and how quietly he had begun to anchor himself at its center. To those outside the walls of their home, the Grants looked like a family finally healed. But beneath the surface, Aaron was not just building a life with them, he was planting the first seeds of control, waiting for the right moment to let his true nature show. Once Aaron Cole had settled into the Grant household, the atmosphere inside the home shifted in subtle ways that only grew sharper with time. At first, it was the little things that went unnoticed. He would comment on what Melissa wore, suggesting she looked better in one outfit than another. He would ask where she was going, insisting it was only because he worried about her safety. He would check her phone casually, laughing as though it were a playful habit, but keeping a careful eye on the numbers she dialed and the names that appeared on her screen. Melissa, still convinced she had finally found someone who cared deeply for her, brushed it off as affection disguised as concern. Weeks passed, and his grip became more obvious. Melissa no longer met her friends for coffee on Saturdays. She excused herself from gatherings at work, explaining she needed to be home. When her sister called, Aaron answered the phone first, claiming Melissa was busy or asleep, even when she wasn't. His presence grew heavier in every corner of the house, like a shadow stretching across every room. Melissa's laughter, once spontaneous and bright, dulled into a forced smile. She told herself she was overthinking it, but deep inside, she knew something was slipping away from her. Olivia noticed more than anyone. She saw her mother's eyes dim whenever Aaron spoke sharply, saw how quickly her shoulders tensed whenever his footsteps echoed through the hallway. Olivia kept her thoughts to herself, but the unease grew heavier each night. She often stayed longer at friends' houses, reluctant to return home, but no matter how late she arrived, Aaron was always awake, watching as though keeping score of her every move. Jacob, in his innocence, didn't fully understand what was happening. He admired Aaron at first, grateful for the attention he never had from a father figure, but even he began to sense the tension. His once cheerful conversations about school or soccer were now met with criticism. Aaron demanded discipline, insisting Jacob wasn't trying hard enough, wasn't strong enough, wasn't focused enough. The boy who once filled notebooks with sketches of superheroes began to draw darker things, shadowy figures, broken houses, faces twisted in anger. His teachers noticed, gently asking if everything was all right at home. Jacob only shrugged, unsure how to explain the storm brewing behind closed doors. The house itself seemed to change. Where once there had been a sense of warmth and comfort, silence now hung thick in the air. Nights were the worst. Arguments erupted behind closed doors, Melissa's voice low and pleading, Aaron's sharp and cutting. Glass shattered once, startling both children, though Melissa quickly explained it away as an accident, but Olivia knew it wasn't. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to her mother's muffled sobs. On the outside, everything still looked picture perfect. Neighbors waved at the family in their driveway. Social media posts showed smiling faces at dinners and outings. Yet behind those carefully crafted images, the Grants were living in a cage built not of iron, but of fear. Aaron's control tightened with each passing day, and though Melissa tried to convince herself it was temporary, a phase of adjustment in blending their lives, she was beginning to realize that she had welcomed not a partner, but a predator who had no intention of letting go. The night Olivia vanished began like any other. It was early November, the air sharp with the coming of winter, and she had been invited to a close friend's birthday gathering just a few blocks away. Melissa, hesitant as always since Aaron had moved in, allowed her to go after Aaron, assured her he would keep an eye on things at home. Olivia left the house with a small backpack slung over her shoulder, promising to be back before 10. Melissa watched her daughter walk down the street, never imagining it would be the last time she would see her alive. When 10 o'clock came and went, Melissa's unease began to grow. By 11 she was pacing the living room, her phone in hand, dialing Olivia repeatedly with no answer. Aaron sat on the couch, unusually calm, reminding her that teenagers lost track of time, that she was probably laughing with friends and ignoring her phone. Midnight came, and Melissa's panic could no longer be contained. She called the parents of Olivia's friend, only to learn that Olivia had left the gathering hours earlier, saying she was heading home. Melissa's heart sank. Something was terribly wrong. The police were notified, and within hours a missing persons case was opened. Search teams canvassed the streets of Cedar Hills. Neighbors joined in, holding flashlights, calling out Olivia's name through the night air. Flyers with her photo were posted on every lamppost and shop window. Melissa's face was soon plastered on local news stations, her trembling voice pleading for her daughter's safe return. Aaron stood beside her during those interviews, his hand gripping hers tightly, presenting himself as the strong, supportive stepfather. Yet to those paying close attention, there was something unsettling about his composure. While Melissa's face was streaked with tears, Aaron seemed focused on the cameras, his posture too deliberate, his gaze too steady, as though he were more concerned with appearances than with the girl who was missing. 3 days later, a breakthrough came when a group of boys riding bikes near a storm drain spotted something unusual. Wedged inside the grate was a cell phone, cracked and smeared with dirt. Police retrieved it and quickly confirmed it belonged to Olivia. The location of the discovery sent a chill through investigators, only 2 blocks from the Grant home. That proximity raised troubling questions. Detectives dug deeper, canvassing neighbors, reviewing security cameras, and questioning Olivia's friends. Several of them reported that Olivia had confided she felt uncomfortable around Aaron. She had told them she disliked how he watched her too closely, how his presence made her feel trapped. At first, the teenager's words seemed like the cautious instincts of a protective daughter unwilling to accept a new man in the house. But as police pieced together her final hours, Aaron's name appeared again and again, like a shadow following every step of the investigation. The town of Cedar Hills, once quiet and secure, now buzzed with fear and speculation. Parents locked their doors earlier, children were kept close, and whispers filled grocery store aisles and church pews. The Grants' once stable household had become the epicenter of a nightmare, and though Melissa clung desperately to hope that her daughter would be found alive, the discovery of the phone marked a chilling turning point. The search for Olivia was no longer about a missing teenager. It was becoming a search for the truth, hidden inside Melissa's own home. The discovery of Olivia's phone so close to home shifted the investigation into darker territory. Detectives began focusing on the people inside the Grant household, questioning both Melissa and Aaron with greater intensity. Melissa was cooperative, frantic to help in any way she could, replaying every detail of that night over and over again. Aaron, on the other hand, seemed oddly rehearsed in his answers. He repeated the same lines, spoke about how Olivia was like a daughter to him, and reminded investigators that he had been at home the night she disappeared. What unsettled detectives wasn't just his composure, but how quickly he became defensive when pressed for details. Determined to learn more, police widened their search into Aaron's past. What they found unraveled the polished image he had presented. His real name was not Aaron Cole, but Aaron Whitfield, a man with a long trail of red flags. Public records revealed arrests in another state tied to domestic disputes. Former partners had filed restraining orders, describing him as manipulative, violent, and controlling. Even more chilling was his connection to a woman who had gone missing nearly a decade earlier. Though no charges had been filed in that case, the similarities were impossible to ignore. While investigators traced Aaron's history, Jacob began to break under the weight of his secret. During a meeting with a school counselor, he quietly confessed that he had overheard something disturbing on the night Olivia vanished. He told them he'd heard Aaron and Olivia arguing in the kitchen long after everyone else had gone to bed. He remembered Aaron's voice rising, sharp and threatening, followed by a chilling warning to keep quiet or else. Jacob's testimony was enough to push detectives to take a closer look at the Grant home itself. The search began in the most obvious places, but when they reached the basement, everything changed. At first glance, the space looked ordinary, used for storage and little else, but under ultraviolet light, faint stains appeared across the concrete floor. Samples were taken, and within days the results came back confirming what investigators had feared. The blood belonged to Olivia. That discovery alone was devastating, but it was what they uncovered next that turned suspicion into undeniable proof. Hidden in a small locked box tucked behind old paint cans were items that should never have been there. Olivia's necklace, the one she had worn almost every day, sat coiled at the bottom. Beside it lay a pair of her sneakers, ripped and stained. Most disturbing of all were photographs, grainy, taken without her knowledge, showing Olivia in her room, in the yard, even asleep. The realization that Aaron had been secretly watching her shattered whatever illusions remained about his role in her disappearance. News of the evidence leaked, and the entire town of Cedar Hills reeled in horror. For Melissa, the revelations were unbearable. The man she had defended, trusted, and welcomed into her home had not only betrayed her, but had turned her family into the setting of a nightmare. She had believed his promises of love and protection, never imagining he was capable of such darkness. The image of a happy blended family was gone, replaced with a chilling truth. A predator had been living under her roof, and her own children had been his targets. Aaron's arrest sent shockwaves through Cedar Hills, but the trial that followed revealed horrors even the investigators had not fully anticipated. From the moment he was led into the courtroom in handcuffs, his demeanor remained unsettlingly calm, as though he believed he could still manipulate the room into seeing him as the man he had once pretended to be. Melissa sat only feet away, her face pale and worn, unable to reconcile the man she had trusted with the monster now facing judgment. Every day she was forced to listen as the life she had tried to build with Aaron was dissected and destroyed in front of strangers. Prosecutors presented the physical evidence first: photographs of the basement stains, forensic tests confirming Olivia's blood, and the hidden box of items that told a story no mother could bear to hear. The jury was shown the images of Olivia's necklace, her torn sneakers, and the secret photographs taken of her. Each piece was like a knife twisting deeper into Melissa's heart. Experts testified about the meticulous way Aaron had controlled his environment, explaining how predators like him thrived on manipulation and secrecy. They argued that Olivia's disappearance was not an impulsive act but the tragic culmination of months of escalating control. Witnesses were called, including Olivia's friends who spoke about her unease around Aaron. They recalled her saying she felt watched in her own home, that she disliked how he hovered and scrutinized everything she did. Their words painted a picture of a teenager who had sensed danger long before anyone else had. Then came Jacob's testimony, delivered in a trembling voice as he recounted overhearing the argument between his sister and Aaron on the night she vanished. The courtroom sat in tense silence as the boy explained the words he would never forget: Aaron's threat that Olivia must keep quiet or else. The most crushing moment came when investigators described the discovery of Olivia's body. She had been found in a shallow grave near an abandoned construction site only 5 miles from the Grant home. The details of her final moments were too painful for Melissa to bear. She wept openly, clutching tissues in her hands, her shoulders shaking as the truth became undeniable. The man she had led into her life, into her children's lives, had destroyed everything she loved. The defense tried to argue that Aaron had been unfairly targeted, suggesting that the evidence was circumstantial, that the photographs were misunderstood, and that his past did not prove he was guilty in the present. But the weight of proof was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than a day before returning with a verdict. Guilty on all counts. Aaron was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For Melissa, the sentence brought no relief. She returned to her quiet house, now hollow with absence, the walls echoing with memories of laughter that would never return. The story of Olivia's disappearance and murder spread far beyond Cedar Hills, capturing national attention and leaving Americans horrified that such evil could hide behind a smile. In the end, the tragedy became a chilling reminder that sometimes the greatest threats are not strangers lurking in the dark, but the people welcomed inside as family.